January 13th, 2025. I've come across something in my mind about the encounter with Theodore Bundy in June of 67. The only one I know now that's researching this case might be Stephen McCoe and maybe Miss McChesney. I want you please to put your thinking caps on. It was June of 67. Debbie and I had been in the choir at Cedar Hills Baptist. We had twirled batons, I believe, up at the at Harlow, the West Side Athletic Club. So we had done things, and there were some times I wanted to get into class a little earlier. We were headed to 8th grade, but I don't think the band was my idea. I know Sylvia Mock, Dexter now, had gone to that band, and for some reason her mother decided she had to drive her. But I'm thinking about that outfit Debbie was wearing, the white peasant top, the Hager jeans that she was allowed to fray about 2 inches. That was a thing in the summer of 68, frayed jeans. I was wearing probably pedal pushers. I think my mom had let me fray. I don't know what top I was wearing. Sometimes I'd wear my brother's Gant shirts. I mean, I was like Rasputin or something. I was 12 years, 9 months, and Debbie was 12 years, 7 months. Her birthday is November. She would have turned 13. I would have turned 13 in September. So we go up to this band practice. That's her idea. I had a clarinet. I believe my mom got it at the pawn shop. And I've had to rack my brain because I have a picture in August, not June, in August, where I'm wearing a little surfer shirt. And kids do not say the same size from 12.9 to say almost 14. There's a lot of development between a 12-year-old and a nearly 14-year-old, okay? So that shirt's sleeves would not have fit around my arm the following year. That means I got it that summer. And I know where I got it from, Daytona. So, and this, I've had to extrapolate. I said, here I am at Mayport in August wearing that surfer shirt, which was a white cotton shirt with a little tiny white strip, what I call it a collar, maybe 2 buttons and a little strip, like a Parsons strip or something, I don't know, but it was just called a surfer shirt. And the thing about that was my mom let me get a couple things. She let me get one of those little rat fink toys, a miniature rat fink toy about that big, what were they called, rat finks or something? Trolls, they were called trolls. There was a whole boardwalk thing there. And then the next thing that she let me get is Woolworths. You know how sometimes Woolworths or Walgreens will have NFL things, or they'll have, like if you're at Jacksonville Beach and you go in the Walgreens, it says Jacksonville Beach. You get a T-shirt at Walgreens rather than one of the more expensive shops. So we went to Woolworths and they had beach gear, and I decided on the red surfer shirt with a white collar. Well, I didn't get it that June. So what I'm thinking is, I may have gotten that June. What I'm thinking is my father usually would take 2 weeks. So you have to put all this together. That's why I said you have to have your thinking cap. So we're standing there in August with my relatives. When did I get the T-shirt? I'm thinking Dad took a vacation of a week and he split it, knowing that his sister, my Aunt Bobby, my Aunt Opal, and my grandmom, and possibly Shirley and Jerry had driven down from Faulkner and Ecru and Tupelo to Jacksonville to visit. But he couldn't use that many days because he'd already used some of his leave in Daytona, where my mother's brother, Walter, worked for Daytona 500. So we're down in Daytona. I get the T-shirt. And what I'm thinking is that summer, we're at band. Bundy is for some reason at Jeb Stewart, and you say, well, you're trying to do Leslie Parmenter. I don't know Leslie Parmenter. I know Sergeant Parmenter at JSO, where I worked for 2 years. I know a Steve Parmenter who was in my 6th grade class and signed my little autograph book. I don't know if Steve is an older brother to Dan and Leslie. It's possible. I remember Joe Parmenter, Sergeant James Parmenter, had sort of strawberry blonde hair, a very quiet man, just like my dad, kind of a quiet Southern person, Anyway, I would see him in this dispatch. Sometimes he would come up to the window. I didn't know he was going into homicide. He was just Sergeant Parmenter at that time. But anyway, going back to the school, Debbie and I go up there walking. Now, if we had summer band, I had a clarinet, and Debbie had the flute. And the lady's name was something like Joyce Russell, the band teacher. She was only like 24 years old, black hair, pretty lady. I couldn't control Debbie like you can't herd cats. So if there was a break, you could get a little soda. They were small, they were like 12 cents. You could get a glass of Coke, a bottle of Coke. And then they also had these little Lance, I guess they were made by the Lance company. So they were like sort of like a Twix, but they were like a hard shell of white and gray. And inside was sort of a peanut butter flavored candy. It was like they were striped. And, you could get something like that for a few cents, maybe 10 cents or 15 cents or something anyway. So there might have been a break, and she might have stepped outside. Now, this is pure speculation. If she was wearing sandals, maybe she picked her foot up and her foot was hurting, and maybe he was there and said, oh, I'm here for an interview. I might be coaching here next year. So this is the time when they had To Serve with Love. So here's this really nice 22-year-old guy wearing khaki shorts, and he's talking to her, and her foot is hurt, and he said, well, if I see y'all, or if I see you when I'm leaving, I can give you a lift. I'm here for my brother to pick up his reports. I'm here for an interview. I'm going to be a coach. I don't know what he told her. He was wearing tan shorts, and he was tan. Anyway, so then we're walking out, and we go by the baseball grounds. Debbie gets on the bleachers, and I'm thinking, oh, no, I want to go home. We're going out of town this weekend. I'm not going to be back here for a whole week. This is in my mind. I don't know this is I'm pretty sure something like this happened because I think we did go out of town. And so she stopped. So we talk a little bit. She's doing her hands like this, and she sat on the bleacher. I said, no, we got a mile home. We got to walk home. It's about a mile, in my mind. I said, well, I'll get you a ride, thinking that maybe one of the older boys from the neighborhood for some reason might have been shooting basketball or doing something in the body shop or something. And so I go across the way in my little grungy self, my clarinet case, my brother's Gant shirts, and phony polyester shorts. And I had my thumb sticking out. And then the Volkswagen came, but the Volkswagen was already in the turn towards the bleachers. That's only a one-way road. He was already going up where Debbie was sitting. Like he had pre-arranged that she might be somewhere as he's leaving. And so it's like he barely saw me. And I said, hey, naked, because he wasn't wearing the shirt. Then I go up, and Debbie gets down off the bleachers and starts talking to him through the windows. I don't know if it was the driver's side window or the passenger side window. I think I stood at the passenger side. Bright red, brand new, shiny Volkswagen. And I'm sorry, in 1967 in Jacksonville, Florida, that was not a teenager's car. Teenagers drove black and dark blue and sky blue Comets and safari wagons and things that they had gotten from the gray Valiants, Fairlanes. I don't know what they called them. Fair something. Anyway, Mercuries. They had all kind of, but they were never shiny, new looking because this was a junior high school, first of all. Most of them were muscle cars, but here's this shiny red. And I remember how they used to have a little red cross on a nurse's uniform that was an enamel little red cross on there. It reminded me of that color red. And the bumpers were solid. They didn't have the black strip on them. And I walked across and I could see the tag, and it appeared to be white with black lettering. It appeared to be white with black lettering in my eyes. They're not the greatest eyes. And it was a very sunny. It was on that clay. And here's a real nice looking young guy, 20 to 22. Debbie's talking to him, and I stand there, no, all right, finish it up because we got to get on home now. And she said, get in. And I said, no, it's just pretend. I'm just pretending. And she said, get in. And then she messed with the thing that was on the seat, on the passenger seat, and it was like a guitar pick or a concave looking thing, and she pushed it forward, and the seat went down. They did not have headrests on those seats. And she said, get in. And I said, no. I think I said no 3 times. And then I stood there for a minute, and then I got in. I said, oh, well, what the heck? He's just going to give us a lift. And so I got in the back, and there were a bunch of books. I said, there's books back here. And he said, just move the books. Just move the books. And then I settled in. There were no seat belts. I don't remember anything about a seat belt. his face and head was just about 6 inches. I sat in the center of that seat because there were books. One of the books was either brown or black, and it was a concordex, and it looked like hieroglyphics to me. One side was probably English, the other side looked like hieroglyphics. I think there was a coffee table looking book with blue and yellows. I don't know, like a man fishing or something. I don't remember. And I put those aside, and there was a shirt, a yellow polo that had some kind of embroidery over one of the chest areas. It wasn't like a polo embroidery. It was more like an emblem, like a British-looking emblem or something, some kind of fancy T-shirt. It was a pale yellow. It was a golf shirt, a polo. It had the little ridges, and I didn't want to step on it either, so I set it aside. And then he pulls alt, and he went around the baseball grounds, and he came to Lamoille. He turned left at Lamoille, which runs into Wesconet and faces what used to be the Kmart, but at that time it was just a cow pasture owned by the Towers Hardware and had pecan trees on it. We shall overcome. We were still walking up there the next year, too. That year was when Robert Kennedy was shot. But anyway, there was a sidewalk we could walk on. But so we came up there, and all of a sudden he pulled a handgun, a silver revolver, and Debbie had quit talking. She had like a bob, and she had died at Siena, even though she was only going on 13. She just quit talking, and she's sitting there, and I'm thinking, in my mind, I guess I'm going to use today's term, oh my God, But anyway, I said, well, what is your name? And he said, Theodore. And I said, Theodore, because it sounded so pretentious. And then I said, well, what is your last name? And he said, Bundy. And I said, your name is Bundy like my clarinet, and your gun is silver like Debbie's flute. Debbie's father's an admiral at NASA. You ought to meet Vicky and Jeannie. They're so beautiful, and they're already out on their own. If you're looking for girls, you need to go up to the high school. And then we started going down Wesconet, and I don't know where the gun went, because I think being a stick shift and everybody was leaving the school, I think he had to put the gun down to be able to get the car in gear to make the turn, I don't know where the gun went, but we just continued talking. And then Debbie, who had suddenly been silent, started talking, and we started talking a lot, just a little strip of about 300-400 yards. Then we got to Harlow, and he pulled into the old Texaco station, not on the side. It was weird where he parked. I always thought, where does he park? He parked in the dirt, hopped the curb, and now he's parking on a sidewalk, by the palm tree. I think there was a palm tree there. Maybe, I don't remember that. Behind it was a 7-Eleven. It's now Carol's Meat Market. And there was a guy named Gene that worked there, and I kept thinking, Gene was a few years older. And Gene worked for John Payton and Gate and 7-Eleven for decades, okay? And then I think he recently, within the last 2 or 3 years, he was 84. So, yeah, he would have been old. If he was 84... So he was about 10 years older than Bundy or so. Anyway, I remember thinking about that, because I'm thinking, who do we know? Who can we see, And then Debbie got out and was on the passenger side, and she continued to talk to him. And I kept thinking, please lower the latch so I can get out. Have you ever gotten off a plane or something with the Army thinking, thank God I could kiss the ground? I've done that with Safe going to New Orleans and coming back on the bus. I said, I just want to kiss the ground to Jacksonville. I felt like that at that time, like, please. And she opened the thing, and I got out, and I act casual as hell. The top of the car, the ceiling of the car was really round, and it had a white, rubbery type material, and there were little peg holes in the rubber. I can't remember the color of the dashboard. I remember the steering wheel seemed to be white, and I remember the steering wheel being so large that it almost went to his knees. He was a slender person. His hair was very, very kinky. And when we came around the corner and got onto Wesconet, there was a bad body odor. It smelled like sweet, crappy hobo sticks. So we're going to, if you've ever been by a homeless person who hasn't bathed in a while, between the urine and the poop that gets on their clothing, or if you ever had somebody that had old clothes, it was kind of like that kind of odor. It's like, oh my God, I don't know. And it came up as soon as the gun was displayed. That's when his eyes were pitch black. His eyebrows went across. I could see him in the rear view mirror. As a matter of fact, for a moment, like an Avanti, I thought the mirror was on the dashboard. It was so, oh my God, his face was beet red. And he didn't look anything like he had looked from the side, from when we were talking from him outside of the car. He looked almost like a Neanderthal or something. It was bad. It was real bad. In his eyes, there was just nothing behind his eyes. And then we went down, and as we talked, well, I think that's my instinct, because even at 13, I was just talk, Anyway, we got out at that convenience store, the Texaco red brick at the time. And that's all I can say. But what I was going to say is I think I actually went to Daytona and got that shirt right after this incident, and it was like 7 or 8 days. And then I go down to Kathleen's, and I said, I've written about the incident. And Debbie says, no, you can't write it in your diary. Your mom will read your diary and we'll get in big trouble. We were hitchhiking and you displayed a gun. And from her, the only thing I get is a few years ago, she said, don't obsess about something that happened, at the time, 53 years ago or whatever. It's like 57 years now, whatever. Don't obsess. Well, you have to obsess about it, because now I have a problem. Because if there was some connection with these people, then why won't she say anything? I got sick when I figured out that there's some connection between her and her sisters and this guy over the years. He knows too much about I-75 and the Cloverleaf and on and on and on. And I just wondered, the other neurobiologist, Rob Dillenberger, he said that at that time he may have been fantasizing about stuff. I don't know. He was at a junior high school and 20 years old. He was 20 years, 7 months. And I always said, well, and I tell people what, and they say, no, you tell me. And where did he get the Volkswagen? I have tried so hard. I mean, if I can put all this together from my puny little 122 IQ, how in the world, can't you all figure out what his scholarship entailed? Did he get any funds from that scholarship? Because I understand it was a full ride scholarship. That means meals and room and board, not just a tuition. And he had use of his girlfriend's credit card, Diane Edwards. He had use of her credit card. And he's a 20-year-old going 800 or 900 miles from home. His parents they weren't that poor. She worked at the college, and her husband worked in the U.S. Army Reserve Center. So, no, they had some funds, and they had that relative that was fairly wealthy. He said, oh, he's going. Can he have a gift? Yeah, he's going to be 20. He's soon to be 21. That's a big time, right? So he's going out of town. So there's another maybe $50, $100. I don't know what the time, 1967. And then so they get some money from that, maybe money from granddad. Who knows? He dropped out of his college in March that year. And his class, the class was over in April. So did he get, did they send him some money in May and say, oh, here's your scholarship, man, you're going to go for 8 weeks? He was supposed to be there on the 24th of June. And I always thought, well, June 17th makes it awfully close. But what if I was out of town and didn't write in my diary until I came back to Jacksonville from Daytona? That would have been another 7 days from whatever day it was. All right. I just wish to God somebody, because I have a problem with it in some sense of the word, because all the things that happened after, was this some kind of like, oh, and here's my phone number back then. It was something like 3, and I lived in Riverside. I mean, I had that phone number a long time. I think you even put it on your cell phone eventually, but it was like 387-4849 or 387-4847 or something. I don't remember. Is there any way? I got a lot of odd phone calls over the years. Oh, and I'm going to say something that saved me. If he was trying to track us over the years, well, there should be something on his end, because that should have been researched. But if he was trying to track somebody in Jacksonville over the years, I thank God my name is Conley, because most people they can spell it with a K. They can spell Kennelly. But yeah, they can spell it with a K. They can spell it Conley. Connelly, Connelly, and most people do not spell it Conely. That's, as a matter of fact, I was talking to my aunt, my cousin in Memphis, and she was saying, yeah, at a point they started to spell the name differently. But see, if you look in the phone book and you're looking for Conn, or you're looking for Conno, you're not going to look at, you're going to look for something different, because we always say Connolly. Well, it's Conely, like Conley, All right. And it's been my saving grace, actually, to have it such an odd way of spelling it, like Conley, because most people don't look for it that way. So if he was trying, thank you, God. Thank you, God Almighty. But I just want to put this out there, because I could die anytime. Anybody could pass away or something could happen. I want this out there that he traveled those 2,000 miles from Palo Alto, where he wasn't supposed to be, in some kind of rented VW or stolen, for all I know. Oh, and I remember something else he did. After the gun disappeared, he patted the steering wheel. Pat, pat, pat. His wrists were very, very thin. His hands were slender. He had little whiffs of what I call black hair. You know what I'm saying? My mom had kinky hair, but Dad and Johnny and me, we have fine blonde hair. All right, thank you.